What's up guys, and welcome to my versus video between the Google Nexus 4 on the left and the Samsung Galaxy S4 over here on the right. Now I just want to mention before I start that a massive part of me really wanted to use my custom ROM and my custom kernel on the Nexus 4, because I really think that is part of what a Nexus device is. But I thought I'd make this a fair test properly and go back to stock ROM. So I am on stock ROM and kernel. I may make a video of a custom Nexus versus the Galaxy S4. I may do that, we'll see how it goes. So here we go, and the first thing I want to talk about has got to be the display. Now the Galaxy S4 over here comes in at 4.99 inches. We'll call it 5 inches just for the ease of it. It has Super AMOLED technology and comes in at a resolution of 1080p. The Nexus 4 on the left here has a 4.7 inch screen, IPS technology, and comes in at a resolution of 720p. It's actually a little bit above 720p, but I'm just going to call it 720p because it's easier. And it also has these on-screen buttons. Now, if you put them together, you can see that you get a lot more screen real estate on the Galaxy S4 due to it not having these on-screen buttons, and also because it's a bigger screen. Now, what I have to give to Samsung here is they did a really good job of not making it too big. It's a 5-inch display versus a 4.7-inch display, and in the hand, I've got to say they really don't feel much different. This doesn't feel significantly bigger than the Nexus 4, and the way they did that was they made the bezel smaller, and you can see if I put them together here, the bezel on the Galaxy S4 is a lot smaller than that of the Nexus 4, and it does make a big difference. You can see the bezel size here, and it's definitely a big difference, and you get a lot more screen real estate on the Galaxy S4 for your apps. In terms of screen technology, the Galaxy S4 on the bottom here has the Super AMOLED display, which means very rich and vivid colors. The IPS display on the Nexus 4 gives you probably a brighter display, but more natural colors and not as vivid. So if I just play this clip here, you'll probably see the differences quite evidently. The Galaxy S4 on the bottom here, you can see the grass is a lot greener and more vivid. The colors on the Nexus 4 over here, some people may say it's a little bit washed out, but I don't agree. I think the Galaxy S4 is just very vivid compared to the real life display of the Nexus 4. So it's kind of a preference thing. It's what you like. It's what you kind of want to have on your phone. So yeah. So let's move over to performance. And the Google Nexus 4 under the hood has the S4 Pro clocked at 1.5 gigahertz, quad core, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and the Adreno 320 GPU. The Galaxy S4 on the right has the Snapdragon 600 clocked at 1.9 gigahertz, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and the Adreno 320 GPU as well. I think it is overclocked, so you probably will get slightly better performance. But let's just do some app opening speeds. I know this isn't the best way to test it, but nonetheless, it is quite interesting. So here we go. Both of these are quad-core devices. We are expecting good performance. I'll make sure nothing's in the recents. Both of these are clean. And let's start it. So obviously there's going to be some human error here. Just take that into account. We'll start off with the Play Store. 1, 2, 3, go. In terms of animations, both were identical, but the Galaxy S4 did just about render the page before the Nexus 4 did. So, I mean, that was very, very tight. There's not much difference in that at all. We'll try out Facebook. 1, 2, 3, go. Again, transitions were identical. This pretty much looks identical. And that was, you couldn't tell those apart. They were identical in terms of refreshing the feed. So very close there. We'll check out Falcon Pro. Galaxy S4 just a hair in front of the Nexus 4. Let's check out YouTube. It's always quite an interesting one to load. Galaxy S4 just in front. But the feed was just finished on the Nexus 4 in front of the Galaxy S4. So you can see how nip and tuck this is. They're basically exchanging blows. It's really, really tight. We'll check out maps because that's always an interesting one as well. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Again, pretty much identical. What I did notice in maps is that the Nexus 4 is very smooth all the way through. I can see I can zoom in here, no problems, hardly any dropped frames whatsoever. I can zoom all the way out and make all the roads load, and it hardly slows down a bit. Now, what I did notice with the Galaxy S4 is it drops more frames randomly. You can see there was a little bit stuttery zooming in and out. The Nexus 4 didn't have that problem. So it's definitely smoother in the Nexus 4 in maps. So I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's the resolution. Maybe it needs an update. I don't know. But it definitely feels smoother in the Nexus 4 in terms of the maps. You can see it there pretty evidently. Let's move on to some more of these app tests. We'll open up... We'll open up Gmail. Galaxy S4 just in front, very tight though. We'll just do a couple more before we move on. And next up is Google+. So 1, 2, 3, go. Again, transitions identical, but the Galaxy S4 did get to the main app page about a second before the Nexus 4. There's not too much difference between the two. We'll just test out the camera now. So I'll just hold these up, see which one loads up the camera first. 1, 2, 3, go. And the Nexus 4 is first for sure, followed by the Galaxy S4. So there you have it, guys. I mean, it's very, very tight in terms of app opening. You can see it's very much nip and tuck. If the Nexus 4 was behind, a lot of the time it was only just slightly behind, probably less than a second behind. And in terms of the megahertz difference, we have a 1.9 gigahertz processor here versus a 1.5. So that's 400 megahertz of difference. I've got to say, I'm really not seeing that much of a big difference in terms of app opening. And I just want to mention, in terms of UI, I have to say my Nexus 4 feels smoother all the time, really. You know, the Galaxy S4 is very smooth a lot of the time, but you can see there, it just gets these random performance hiccups that I don't see on the Nexus 4. I've got to say, in terms of smoothness, I do think the Nexus 4 is the smoother, more consistent device out of these two. So, yeah. So we saw from the app opening speed test that the Nexus 4 could really compete with the Galaxy S4, even though the Galaxy S4 has a higher clocked, stronger processor. They're pretty equal in terms of performance. Even if the Galaxy S4 is just a hair in front, I do think the UI on the Nexus 4 is smoother. Nonetheless, let's move on to the browser speed test. Now, I'm going to use Chrome Beta on both, so this is going to be a fair test. And yeah, here we go. So let's go ahead and find this damn thing. Here we go. We'll just do an app opening speed test right now. Again, pretty much identical, but yeah, let's load up some web pages. So here we go. I've cleared the cache on both of these, so it is a fair test. I've got Android Central right here. Both going to the mobile site. Galaxy S4 is in front. And the Galaxy S4 is done, followed by the Nexus 4 about a second behind, so not, again, much difference there. Hit the full version. And it's pretty tight. Galaxy S4 just in front, I think. We'll wait for this blue bar. And Galaxy S4 is done, just followed by the Nexus 4, but that was very tight there. In terms of performance, you can see here a few frame drops on the Galaxy S4 there. It doesn't look completely smooth, but there you go. This is obviously on Chrome Beta, so different browsers might do different stuff, but slight few frame drops we'll check out on the Nexus 4. Feels smoother to me on the Nexus 4. I don't see those same frame drops. If I do that together, you can see what I mean there. Slight few frame drops on the Galaxy S4, but pretty good performance on both, as you can see right here. Nexus 4, I think, does have slightly better performance, I've got to say, on the web browser. On Chrome Beta, anyway. Who knows about different browsers? Let's test out a different website. Next up, we've got GSM Arena. And interesting, looks like the Nexus 4 was just in front there. We'll go to the full site. Galaxy S4's in front on the full site for sure. It's pretty much finished loading. And it's done. Nexus 4, probably about 5-6 seconds behind it. In terms of performance, pinch to zoom, nice on the Galaxy S4 in terms of this website. Again, a few slight frame drops, but you know, really nothing to write home about. It's still really nice performance. You can see the difference in screen size here, how much more website you get on the Galaxy S4 as well. And you get that annoying kind of Nexus 4 bug where it doesn't start to pinch to zoom until a few centimeters out, which is kind of annoying, whereas the Galaxy S4 does it instantly, and that is one of my annoyances with the Nexus 4 right there. But Galaxy S4 did just load that one in front. We'll check out another one. Next up, we've got the Verge. Both going to the mobile app. And Galaxy S4 just finished in front. Even though it looked like the Nexus 4 was just in front, the Galaxy S4 did finish first. So let's go to the full site here. Again, it's very tight. And just in front again is the Galaxy S4. You can see how much it's just a hair that it is in front, but nonetheless it is in front. And looks like the Nexus 4 has finished first here, actually, while I was saying that it was in front. It looks like the Nexus 4 finished. And really good performance again from the Nexus 4 in terms of scrolling and stuff like that. This is quite a heavy website, so expect a bit of lag. Again, nice performance on the Galaxy S4 as well. Pinch to zoom, very responsive. So that was the browser speed test. And again, these two devices are very close in terms of performance. I do think the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a slight edge in terms of raw speed over the Nexus 4. It was consistently loading the web pages slightly faster than the Nexus 4. In terms of fluidity and frame rate, I do think it was more consistent on the Nexus 4. It felt slightly smoother to me. Maybe that can be fixed with an update, considering this is 1.9 gigahertz versus 1.5 gigahertz. That's a 400 megahertz difference. that I'm just not really seeing so far. So let's move on to benchmarks, and always take these with a pinch of salt, because we've seen in the real world performance tests there isn't that much between these two devices. However, in benchmarks it's quite a big difference. The Galaxy S4 and Antutu scores 23,167 versus the Nexus 4's 17,105. Now this is stock ROM, and on a custom ROM with a custom kernel this can actually score 21,000 plus, but nonetheless this is stock, so let's check it out. And you can see, if we just zoom in, check out the difference in the CPU score, because it is massive. The Galaxy S4 scores 10,779 versus the Nexus 4's 6,235. So the Galaxy S4 in terms of benchmarks is the absolute clear winner. You can see its raw horsepower right there. But in terms of real world performance, we're not seeing all those numbers translate into excellent, much better performance. It just isn't there. So yeah. You can already see, we'll zoom back in quickly. You can also see the GPU scores right now. The Galaxy S4 scores 8,224 versus the Nexus 4 7,733. They are both running the Adreno 320, but I do think the Galaxy S4's version is slightly overclocked. So here we go with Geekbench 2, and this is a CPU benchmark. You can see, again, the Samsung Galaxy S4 is running away with it. 3,253 versus the Nexus 4's 1,945. So again, it is the absolute king of benchmarks. You can clearly see the Snapdragon 600 at 1.9 gigahertz has amazing potential. You know, it's off the charts in terms of the benchmarks. Its raw power is amazing, but in terms of real world performance, we're just not seeing those numbers translate. And this is what I want to talk to you about next. It's the software, and I think this is the reason why those numbers aren't translating. So we'll start off with the Galaxy S4, and it comes with Android 4.2.2 under the hood. And this is the latest version of Android, which is great. But on top of that, Samsung puts its own UI skin, and this is called TouchWiz. Now, TouchWiz is good and bad. Basically, it's good because it gives you all these extra features like these toggles, brightness slider, smart stay, smart view, and all those kind of gimmicky features. It's bad because it takes up a lot of RAM and it takes away from the performance of the device. And that's why I think the Galaxy S4 isn't as fast as it should be versus, say, for example, the Nexus 4 with its clean Android. And that's what I should mention. This also has the latest version of Android 4.2.2, but it has no skin on top of it. It's just stock Android, no gimmicky features, very clean, no bloatware, and it just means it absolutely flies, you know. It doesn't slow down. There's very little issues anywhere on stock Android. Now, it's kind of your choice, you know. Do you want all these features that will come at a price? I didn't, because I ended up turning them all off. But then saying that, I am a fan of stock Android. So that's your kind of choice. You either get TouchWiz with a lot of extra features, or you get stock Android, which is smoother, faster, and cleaner, but you don't get all the features that you might get on the Galaxy S4. So moving on to the camera, and this is one area where I think the Samsung Galaxy S4 destroys pretty much every phone right now, not just the Nexus 4, but it's 13 megapixels right here versus 8 megapixels. And although I'll load up a picture that I took on both to try and show you guys, but because they're on different screens, it's kind of hard to judge it, but you'll have to take my word for it. The 13 megapixel on the Galaxy S4 is absolutely amazing. The color reproduction, everything is fantastic on this. It's super sharp. You get loads of detail. Colors are fantastic, like I said before. This is the same image right now. And like I said, it's kind of difficult to say because they're on a different display. But I can definitely tell you the image is better on the Galaxy S4. It just is sharper, more accurate. Everything about it screams quality. The Nexus 4 isn't necessarily a bad camera. Its 8 megapixels camera is actually pretty good, but Nexus devices have never been known for their cameras. The Nexus 4 probably has the best camera of any Nexus device, but it can't compete with the Galaxy S4 camera, that's for sure. The Galaxy S4 camera also gives you an absolute shit ton of options. If you press mode here, you'll be greeted with so many different options you won't know what to do with. You've got night, sports, panorama, eraser, HDR, animated photo, drama, sound and shot, best face, best photo, beauty face, and auto. And you can also record using the front and back facing camera at the same time. In terms of options, it is amazing how many different options you have. For the Nexus 4, you've got some options. You can see you can hold down the button here. You've got HDR and a few other shots like night mode and video camera and the photosphere, which is actually really cool. But you don't have any of that kind of, you know, best face and all that sort of gimmicky stuff. But nonetheless, the Galaxy S4 camera is definitely the winner in this department. So I just wanted to finish this off by talking about battery life. And I'm sure some of you will notice that my Nexus 4 has changed. I'll be honest, the reason for that is I forgot to include the battery life segment. And I already started to restore my custom ROM. But nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has a 2600 mAh battery versus the Nexus 4's 2100 mAh battery, and this is another area where the Galaxy S4 definitely wins out. The battery life is fantastic. I really think it'll even get the heaviest user through the day. I've had no problems with the battery life. I can't say the same for stock on the Nexus 4. Now, if you install a custom kernel, it's a lot better and can actually rival the Galaxy S4's. But on stock, the battery life kind of sucks on the Nexus 4. It won't get the heaviest user through the day whatsoever. If I show you the Galaxy S4 battery life right now, I've been using it all today to do this video. You can see I've had 6 hours, 2 minutes of usage, 60%, but the screen on time is in 3.5 hours, which is pretty damn good. That's actually amazing. You know, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, whereas the Nexus 4 will probably score 2.5 to 3 hours on stock ROM. So battery life is definitely a winner for the Galaxy S4. So there you go, guys. That's the versus comparison between the Google Nexus 4 and the Samsung Galaxy S4. Both have their pros and cons. It's kind of a hard decision between them. The Nexus 4, don't forget, is a lot cheaper than the Galaxy S4. But on the Galaxy S4, you are getting pretty much higher spec in every department, even though some of those specs don't always account for better performance. So take that into account. Let me know what you guys think, and if there's anything else you want to see, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and make a video on it. Peace out.